Chapter 5 of the Overlord of Nadeshiko.
Blue planet, you would have enjoyed this view.
Suzuki Satoru spoke to himself, finding a brief respite from work to see the fantastical view on top of a tower. His gaze followed the shifting landscape, watching as the forest turned into woodlands before becoming increasingly sparse the closer the mountains of the valley rose. He could see a gleaming blue river running through it, flowing down the valley and away from his sight, a few people collecting its vibrant waters. It was a beautiful sight, and the refreshing breeze provided a relaxing scent and comfort. He reached into his inventory and pulled out a peculiar object, a seed. It lay in the palm of his glove, moved slightly by the wind but never away.
A little seed from Nazarick,
he commented, remembering the various seeds that he and other guild members collected to aid in Blue Planet's collection, wanting to further decorate the Great Tomb's 6th floor with various plants. He was a randomized seed too, its species unidentifiable until a certain growth period. However, out of everything in his inventory, he only had a single seed. They cluttered his inventory beforehand, so he'd stored them away in Nazarick's treasure. But he felt sentimental and kept a single seed item for personal reasons. He clutched the seed in his hand and briefly glanced around to spot anyone watching. Ains nodded.
Greater teleportation.
He spoke the tear spell and vanished from Nadeshiko village, reappearing much farther away next to the river he spotted. Suzuki Satoru took a moment to bask in nature, then walked to a suitable spot.
Blue Planet, you always said that you wanted to plant seeds. Well, I'll fulfill your wish to some degree here.
He crouched down and began digging out a suitable hole, deep enough to avoid birds and other animals he would work. The Overlord planted the seed and buried it, just in case. He wanted something to protect it but didn't want to use undead or anything high level. This would give him a chance to experiment with some summons. A black void briefly appeared as the player reached into his inventory and pulled forth the staff of Ain's old gown. Then, with a small gesture, used one of its 7 gems of the serpent mouths, gem of the moon, to summon with a thought 3 moonlight wolves. They were each level 20, highly agile ambush monsters that had the appearance of Siberian wolves with a radiated silver glow. Since they were so low level, Ains could kill them easily in a single spell, and an individual like Shizuka could kill them without too much difficulty. Since this area had relatively close proximity to Nadeshiko village, he didn't want incidents to occur leading to citizen or kunoichi deaths. But they should be enough to dissuade people from approaching. Ains could feel a mysterious connection between him and the summons, a subservient link that clearly identified the master and servant relationship.
Guard this location and this planted seed. Do not kill humans, but you can injure them if they attempt to approach,
he ordered. The wolves barked in response. Satisfied, Ains stored the staff of Ain's old gown back into his inventory. He didn't know if summons would remain indefinitely unless he dispelled them with the staff, so he would return to check every few days. Although he planted the seed out of response to Blue Planet, he also served as a possible test to see if something from Yggdrasil could grow here. While the Moonlight Wolves served to test how summons worked in this ninja world. Now, speaking of ninja, he was curious about Nadeshiko's medical nin. Since it wasn't based on term magic, using ninjutsu relying on chakra, he wondered as to the potency of healing jutsu in relation to healing spells. He used the 7th tier spell Greater Teleportation to return to his room in Nadeshiko village. He waited a bit in the room, making sure there was nobody around to have seen his spell, but it seems none were the wiser. Ains still had a bit of time before he had to visit Shizuka back in the CEO office, or the village leader's office it was known by. It was basically his lunch break right now, a refreshing half-hour off work. Suzuki Satoru never had more than 10 minutes in his old company, and that was generous compared to other workplaces. Ain's old gown walked out of his room and through the hallway leading out of the building. If he recalled the tour, Nadeshiko's hospital building is located on Academy Hill, where other public services also were. Yet another example of either poor planning or purposeful bias, as it was the farthest from the residential hill, the lowest of the hills containing the majority of the population, all who were newer generations only going a few back. The downside of creating a civilization on top of hills was that there was limited space, so urban planners should take into consideration the placement of public services. But again, it was poor city planning that Nadeshiko village suffered from, even if it wasn't clearly apparent with the residents.
Ma'am, could I expand the size of the hills with tear magic?
Ains muttered under his breath to himself. He had a massive collection of spells, more so than anyone in his guild, but unfortunately, he didn't have any nature-based spells. That would fall under the druid class and similar builds. He did, however, have a single certain spell that could change the environment entirely. But using that would be like announcing his identity as a player. He needed to keep such trump cards hidden.
No dice, then,
he said. Wait, jutsu of the earth element was possible, then wouldn't I just need to have multiple kunoichi cast them? But did ninjutsu changes in terrain last permanently? Well, it is used for the quarry, maybe I should confirm with Tokiwa about it. An expansion might be possible, but the labor costs would be substantial. And as Ains knew, Nadeshiko village had little spare cash to spend, unless they accepted credit? It would put Nadeshiko village in debt, but that wasn't anything new for governments. If so, demolition and reconstruction of facilities for efficient city design are not far out of reach either. It would displace some citizens for a time, but temporary housing can be arranged on the ground until construction is complete. If the geological survey or subsequent ones succeed, it would hopefully provide some financial relief. He stopped, having lost his way after leaving the main hall's building. Although the tour did help him, Ains was still unfamiliar with the city layout. He glanced around, eyes trailing over busy citizens, and spotted a young girl that, although dressed in personal clothing of a basic shirt and skirt with bright green colors, did wear a headband that marked her status as a kunoichi. Perhaps a genin, she appeared about 12 with long brunette hair and was looking at him with a curious gaze. Ains approached her.
Greetings. Can you tell me which direction is the bridge to the academy?
She seemed a bit hesitant. Did he intimidate her accidentally?
Are you Lord Ains? Lady Shizuka's husband?
Not a husband yet. The ceremony hasn't begun, but I am Ains Owlgown.
He answered her.
I'm Sakiko. Your name sounds cool. I think it matches your amazing outfit, almost like something out of a book.
She complimented. Red adorned her cheeks with it as she observed his equipment. He chuckled a bit, feeling a little joy from her honesty.
Thank you. My friends helped in its design,
he replied, thinking a bit back on the days Ains Owlgown's members helped each other collect or craft equipment in Yggdrasil.
Really, your friends must be professionals.
She spoke with awe. He laughed.
Yes, they were quite the professionals in their fields.
He boasted proudly of the fact. His increased joy was suppressed back. Ains' laughter died down quickly.
Pet, so it affects that too?
He whispered to himself, displeased with the interruption.
I was wondering if you had something cool like that I could have?
The genin asked.
M.A.
Ains thought about it for a bit, but appreciating the genin's honesty and praise, he decided to relent. A low-level item shouldn't be any trouble.
Depends. What kind of kunoichi are you training to be?
He asked. Since Sakiko was a genin, the girl likely lacked a specialization. Similar to how new players' builds lacked focus on what classes they wanted until they learned more of the game.
I'm training to be a medical nin, but I like learning ninjutsu too.
She answered him. Oh, what luck, a medical nin in training, just what he was looking for.
Well, that's fortunate. I was curious as to how medical jutsu worked. If you can satisfy my curiosity, I'll give you a special item that'll help in healing.
Rewarding employees for good work made a decent boss. And although Sakiko was a child, she was also a kunoichi of Nadeshiko village's military forces, which meant she was by definition under him.
Really? What do you want to know then, Lord Ains?
Sakiko asked excitedly.
How many medical nine are there in Nadeshiko?
He questioned.
We only have a dozen. It's hard to train as a medical nin. Most people at the hospital are just doctors, not capable of medical ninjutsu.
She answered truthfully. So whatever subcategory of job class that allowed the designation of medical nin was difficult to acquire? Or was it related to the jutsu that made it difficult?
Any reasons why?
He continued.
Yeah, it requires a lot of precise chakra control. All the jutsu rely on it.
Sakiko said, then pointed to herself and boasted proudly.
I happen to be really gifted in chakra control. So my Jonin leader directed me to learn from a senior medical nin about becoming one.
Ains read about the concept of chakra control beforehand but didn't realize how significant it could be to a ninja's ability to learn certain jutsu. Unlike mana, which required no level of control over it, the people here had to train their control, and not everyone was gifted in it. So the medical nin job class had a higher level chakra control requirement. There wasn't anything that Ains could do to help ease that requirement, but there were methods to heal with spells from items or summons that he had available. Ains asked.
What's the strongest healing jutsu you've seen?
The medical nin leader showed me the mystical palm technique. That's an ranked jutsu.
The genin girl answered. Oh, a ranked jutsu. That's the rank below the highest grade. But if the medical nin leader knew an A-rank jutsu, wouldn't that make him quite strong? Well, healers aren't supposed to be frontliners, but healing spells did damage to the undead, so it would be worth some caution around medical nin.
And what about you?
She grinned.
I just learned the healing technique. It's basic. Only D rank. But I'm happy about it.
Oh, congratulations then. Healers are a very important member for a P team.
He quickly corrected his use of terms at the end. If she learned a basic healing jutsu and it's a D rank, it might be similar to the low-tier spell light cure wounds or middle cure wounds. It was difficult to determine and compare jutsu ranks to tier spell levels.
Thanks. I'm sure to become a great medical nin of Nadeshiko.
She proclaimed. Quite a loyal genin, but she was conditioned to be. There was little separation of civilian and military education, both occurring in the same facility. Of course, as a genin, Sakiko likely didn't know the limits of actual medical nin yet.
As a celebratory gift, let's see.
He reached into his robe again, thinking about what type of item would benefit the young kunoichi.
Ah, here.
Ains pulled out a necklace with 3 emerald-hued gems attached to a golden chain.
A necklace?
She said, confused.
This isn't a normal necklace. This is the necklace of crystal healing. You see, it has a special little effect. Why not try using your healing technique, jutsu?
He said, putting the necklace over the girl's head, letting it rest on her neck. She proceeded to use 3 hand seals, then place one hand over the other, as a bright glowing ball of green energy appeared. It looked similar to a touch spell, unsurprising. Much lower healing spells required short or melee range.
It's way brighter,
she commented. So it's not normally bright? So it must be working.
Necklace of crystal healing improves your healing effectiveness when it's worn.
Ains explained. It actually increased the healing power of spells by a value of 15. The item also had another effect besides increased healing empowerment. It provided a self-regeneration effect to non-undead wearers, though it was minuscule. There had been many gimmick builds trying to find ways to exploit health regeneration, and although certain races such as trolls could exploit it better, there hadn't been many players who stuck with it. Ains recalled a previous thought about handing out items and equipment, and while he couldn't outfit everyone in Nadeshiko village, that didn't mean he couldn't give any equipment whatsoever. Especially items that he couldn't use himself. Although it would hurt the collector inside, as long as it wasn't the last of that item in his inventory, no harm was done. He should also restrict it to low-level items, that way he can control the power balance a bit. He felt that his friends would approve.
Can I keep this? Isn't this really valuable?
Sakiko questioned in alarm. Valuable? Well, with any other method to obtain more, then yes it is. But for Ains, he didn't feel like the item, in particular, was valuable, it was just a lobby drop item. Yameko had an entire divine grade set of items for her healing build and even used some healer wands. Wait, did wands work for the people here? He had quite the quantity of wands, they didn't require mana to use, unlike some items thought for another time.
Yes, keep it. I can't use medical ninjutsu, so it's useless to me.
He admitted truthfully, but as the genin explained before, it wasn't uncommon. He just realized his break time is probably almost up by now, and he never managed to step foot on Academy Hill. So many distractions, all interesting, he hoped Shizuka would give him some vacation days. He'd like to indulge in the village's various facilities and shops sometime. Later at night, Ainsul Gown had been called upon by Shizuka to join her outside the entrance of Nadeshiko village. It wasn't a social call, rather, an obligation to defend the village as the co-leader and husband. Not 2 days had passed and already he was fighting in defense of his workplace. What sort of world was this that an entire ninja village would be threatened so quickly? He still barely knew how chakra and jutsu worked. There wasn't much information to go on here. His panic was suppressed back down to a calm demeanor. No, this was just coincidental. The information that Nadeshiko village's culture states its kunoichi must marry and welcome a man into the village would bring it unsavory individuals wishing to take advantage of that fact. Shizuka, as the leader of the village, would be a primary target. His presence here announced the fact that the position with Shizuka was already taken. Well, he'll first confirm.
Shizuka.
He spoke his would-be wife's name, watching her as she was double-checking her equipment.
Yes, Ains?
She replied to him while doing her checks.
It is unusual that a group would threaten Nadeshiko, unless it was a foreign village or notable rogue ninja.
Ains began.
What is the situation that both leaders must be called handle it?
It's a strange case. Not something that's happened before for me. But a little while ago, I got a report that a new form of wildlife appeared and attacked patrolling kunoichi.
She explained. Oh wait, wasn't that? Shizuka continued.
It's a small pack of what look like wolves, but an unnatural light glows off their fur. The returning Chunin managed to escape. I believe these may be summons by an enemy ninja trying to gain information.
It really was the Moonlight Wolves. At least he got confirmation that ninja summons exist though, a useful tidbit of information.
Are you sure this pack didn't wander in and claim territory?
Ains said, attempting to dissuade Shizuka.
Wolves aren't naturally found in the land of water, and they don't glow.
Shizuka finished and looked straight at Ains' mask. Yikes, she's taking this seriously.
Still, if they're summons, why couldn't the Chunin defeat them?
He asked curiously.
They tried and failed. The wolves outsped them.
She answered. Really? Sure, they were quite quick for level 20 summons, but not that strong. Perhaps he overestimated ninja, or maybe. Wait. He should take a more real-world approach to how things work. A level 1 player avatar had the same potential as any other level 1 player, but that was with game balance. But a world of reality wouldn't take that into consideration. There might be Chunin stronger or weaker than other Chunin, or perhaps even stronger than Jonin, or weaker than some Genin. Did a ninja's rank designate their power and strength, or was it other factors taken into consideration? The bingo book seemed a more accurate danger estimate, but a rank in the village might be more based on experience than level. Ains nodded to himself, understanding more about this ninja world. Now, should he admit to summoning those wolves? He'd rather not replace them, and he wanted to keep a guard for the planted seed. But he had caused this incident in the first place.
Then let's head out,
Shizuka said. Just admit it already, Satoru, you messed up. His emotions were suppressed once again.
Hold it. Can you let me handle this? I have a jutsu that can tame them if they're not an enemy summons,
he said, feeling for his link with the moonlight wolves, which was easily felt. She looked curiously at him, but agreed.
All right, to be honest, I don't exactly like fighting animals.
Her seriousness waned.
Not because they look like dogs?
Ains commented.
Well, maybe that too.
She looked away with a bit of an embarrassment. He chuckled a bit.
Do not worry. I have a feeling they are no threat to Nadeshiko.
Yeah, right, a feeling. Ugh, what was he thinking? Doing that in the afternoon? After a small trek, Ains and Shizuka arrived at the riverside where the moonlight wolves remaining laying around the place where they were told to guard. Shizuka hid in the bush. A hand reached into her weapon pouch, ready to throw bladed weaponry at a moment's notice. Ains, on the other hand, approached the wolves without any caution, because he knew otherwise. He did a flamboyant hand movement and cast triplet silent magic, Lesser Luck, which cast silently 3 times the Lesser Luck buff spell, making all 3 wolves glow with a special effect while he shouted.
Wildlife tame canine jutsu.
Of course, no such jutsu existed as far as Ains knew, it was merely for show. He made a mental command to them to cease all orders and remain passive. He turned to Shizuka, motioning her to approach. She left her hiding spot.
Is that it? They're tame?
Tamed, not domesticated.
He made sure to clarify.
They're passive to everything right now, but won't be forever. I can make an imprint not to attack anything with Nadeshiko Village's symbol.
The symbol of Nadeshiko Village was a circle of 5 black petals that reached inward before stopping at a white star in the center of the circle. Basically, a flower with a star inside it.
Can they help defend the village?
She asked.
I can make them defend people with the symbol.
He replied. He had complete control over the summons, but designating the defense of the village would be troublesome to distinguish between kunoichi, citizens, and friendly foreigners without some sort of identification.
Do that then.
Shizuka seemed pleased. Maybe she was happy with the fact they had wolves in service of the village? Ains didn't know, but he did admit moonlight wolves did look kinda cool. He made an exaggerated hand motion.
Done.
Ains spoke to the kunoichi. He repeated his old order but added the key factor to treat those with Nadeshiko's symbol with impassiveness, but defend them if in the same proximity from hostiles. With Shizuka's presence, the moonlight wolves would be able to identify the symbol from her headband. All in all, he managed to fix his mistake. He hoped it was just this one time.